Eyes up YouTube, welcome back to another Destiny 2 build video, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at our Hunter. My chat made a bet with me and they made me play Hunter. I had to sit in the lab, cook up some builds, fight my way through it, but I will say this, Fortune's favor is absolutely disgusting on any subclass. But today I want to show you guys my favorite one. Do me a favor, follow us on Twitch, like the video, subscribe, and leave it in the comments section below what's your favorite subclass to use with Fortune's Favor. Let's get right into the video. Fortune's Favor is the brand new exotic that released for Hunters with Renegades, and it's the last one that I got my hands on, but man, will I tell you, this thing can do pretty much everything. It's amazing for neutral gameplay and survivability, which is something that I think Hunters really did need. So let's talk about the exotic. So the exotic perk says, after landing a final blow while at full health or when out of combat for an extended duration, your shields will slowly recharge into an overshield. The overshield you get from this is a void overshield, which is going to be really important. Now, when you have an overshield, your weapons gained increased accuracy, stability, handling, and damage against combatants. And final blows will grant a short period of increased mobility once the overshield is depleted. The last part's not super important, but the rest of it is absolutely insane. Now, why are we using this with Stasis, you might ask? Well, because Shatterdive is really fun. Let's talk about our Stasis aspects. The first one that we're using is Shatterdive. Shatterdive says, activate while mid-air to quickly descend and shatter nearby targets on impact. Shattering targets grant you frost armor. Now, this aspect was changed recently with Renegades, that allows it to give you frost armor when you shatter a target. This could be your own grenade, this could be a frozen target on the field, but the great part about this is the way that we have the build set up is every time we shatter one of our glacial grenades, we're going straight to ×8 frost armor, which is a 50% damage reduction. On top of us using things like the ferropotent armor, on top of us having a void overshield, and pairing that with the artifact to give us devour and weaken on everything, this build becomes an ad clear powerhouse. The next aspect that we're running is Grim Harvest. Defeating slowed or frozen targets creates stasis shards. These shards grant melee energy when picked up by you or your allies. While Grim Harvest is equipped, picking up stasis shards also grants stacks of frost armor. So this leans into our frost armor even more and allows us to maintain those stacks even when we're not using Shatterdive. Our grenade of choice should be no secret. Of course, we're going to be using Glacial Grenade. It gives us the most amount of crystals on the field that we can then shatter for big bursts of damage. Moving right into our fragments, the first fragment that we're taking is Whisper of Fissures. This says, increase the damage and size of the burst of stasis when you destroy a stasis crystal or defeat a frozen target. This feeds right into the gameplay loop of this build. We want to use our grenade as much as possible. Since our Praxic Blade is actually going to be freezing targets as well, we can use Shatterdive on those frozen targets to also get this effect and do more damage to them. The next fragment that we're going to be using is Whisper of Shards. Shattering a stasis crystal temporarily boosts your grenade recharge rate. Shattering additional stasis crystals increase that duration of this benefit. Again, since we can Shatterdive frozen targets and we can freeze targets with our melee, we can freeze targets with our Praxic Blade, we have the opportunity to continuously increase our grenade regeneration, so we can always have a Glacial Grenade ready to Shatterdive. Next up, we're using one of my favorite stasis fragments, Whisper of Torment. This one says, you gain grenade energy each time you take damage from targets. Having frost armor increases the amount of energy gained. Now, this might be a little bit of an overkill, but I like to always make sure I have a grenade ready, especially in a Shatterdive build, where your grenade cooldown is the most important thing. So Whisper of Torment is a must take for me. Next up on our fragment list is Whisper of Rime. This one says your frost armor has increased duration and maximum stack count. So typically with frost armor, we're only allowed to get a ×5 stack, which gives you roughly about 31.25% damage reduction. However, because we're using Whisper of Rime, that allows us to get ×8 on our frost armor, which bumps us up to 50% damage reduction at 13 seconds versus the normal 8 seconds that we would get out of it. This is a huge boost in survivability for the build. Lastly, we're using Whisper of Conduction. So nearby stasis shards track to my position. I really only use this for the additional 10 super. The health didn't really matter too much, but in this last slot, you can use whatever you want to. Next up, let's take a look at our weapons, our stats, and our armor mods. So going right into the mods, on our helmet, we're running 1 kinetic siphon to create orbs whenever we use our Praxic Blade. as well as one super font to push our super up to 80, and a heavy ammo finder so we can get some extra heavy ammo. In our arms, we're running triple impact induction. On our chest piece, we're running the standard resist mods. On our boots, we have double kinetic weapon surge, as well as one better already, just for some added survivability, since we're always going to be creating orbs with Praxic Blade. And then on our cloak, we're running one time dilation to give us increased time on our damage boost, as well as double bomber to help us reduce our grenade cooldown whenever we use our class ability. Going into our stat distribution for this build, it's pretty simple and even across the board, but the two main stats that you want to focus on is your weapon stat and your grenade stat. Everything else you can push into super to try to push your super up as much as possible. But let's be real, the Stasis super doesn't really do a ton of damage. It's really just there for added survivability. Now, going into the armor sets that I recommend for this build, I definitely recommend a 2-piece Ferropotent set. Obviously, this is going to help you get some more damage resistance. And Swordmaster works perfectly with this build. It allows you to exhaust targets when you melee them or hit them with the sword. So everything that your Praxic Blade touches is going to be doing 25% less damage to you. Going into the weapon setup for this build, obviously I am using Praxic Blade. However, when this current season is over and the artifact completely changes and Praxic isn't as good anymore, this build is still going to be extremely viable with whatever type of weapons you choose to use because we're investing so heavily into the weapon stat. Now, there's a couple different options that you can use for your secondary slot. I like Sai Eterna as an option. I also like Motif 41 as an option. Unfall is also another great option. Any double special that you can really run here works pretty well. And then lastly, for your heavy slot, it's completely up to you. I like to use swords, especially ones with eager edge. So the two best swords to pair with this build, if you're going to follow exactly what I'm doing here, is either the Sullen Claw from the new dungeon, or if you have one of the old slammers lying around with cold steel on it, it actually pairs really well with this build. Now let's talk about the artifact. So going into the artifact, the main things that you want to take here is Repost. This allows your heavy sword to stun unstoppable champions. This is super important for this. You definitely want to take Kinetic Synthesis if you're running Praxic Blade. This is how you have infinite ammo. Power from Pain is huge in this build. So rapid final blows against weakened combatants grant you Devour. This is how we're able to get Devour on the Stasis subclass. Then we're running Singularity Blade. So while you have a Void Elemental buff, which is the Void Overshield that we get from the boots themselves, melee and sword hits weaken targets, while melee and sword final blows create a weakening burst. This allows us to weaken multiple targets and pairs really well with Power from Pain because as we defeat those targets, it gives us Devour. And then Void Infestation is just a no-brainer here. So defeating weakening targets spawns little tracking projectiles that weaken other targets, and it allows you to just continue that Devour chain and weakening chain. And then lastly, of course, is Swordstorm combo. This amplifies your survivability, especially when using Praxic Blade or any sword. So definitely make sure you take this one as well. Well, YouTube, that's the build. My son also wants to say hi.
Hello, YouTube.
Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And again, in the comment section below, let me know what your favorite subclass is to run with Fortune's Favor. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye!